All right, fam. We about to party like it's 2024, at least for a little bit, until we talk about what happened in the 2025 season. But listen, happy New York Liberty Day to all who celebrate. We're gonna get into this, storied holiday that's just 1 year old, and then if we will ever get a special celebration for the New York Liberty in New York City again. That and more on today's episode of Gotta Get Up. Gotta get up. Gotta get up. Gotta get up. Hey, women's basketball fans, welcome to Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans brought to you by Black Rosie Media and hosted by Erica L. Ayala. Hello, New York Liberty fans. Welcome to another episode of Gotta Get Up, a podcast for New York Liberty fans. What up, Daniel? Sports highlights. Thank you so much. Erica L. Ayala here with Brian Fleurantin. And listen, it's New York Liberty Day, so I had to wear my championships hoodie. We have a lot to talk about with regard to the 2025 New York Liberty, but at least for a little bit, Brian, we're going to celebrate.
Yes. My only thing is that if it's a holiday, I kind of need time and a half since we're working tonight. Like, I don't know who we got to call, but someone's got to make the call. Right. So that way we get a little bit of extra dinero for our efforts tonight.
I know that's right. And y'all can always, join us up in the super chats. We are going to be expanding our horizons in ways that you can support Black Rosie Media. But for now, we will take your likes, your subscribes, your comments. Hit up the newsletter that Brian so eloquently curates for us twice a week. And so, yeah, some good stuff happening there for sure. But it is New York Liberty Day in New York City, honoring the first ever championship in New York Liberty history. Had a little video montage on social media earlier. 2024 was good. And hey, Tammy, Amir, I don't know what you missed. Told me we just got started. We just started to cook out here. Welcome, welcome. But, Brian, when you think about the championship, whether it's the 2024 season or the championship itself, the celebration, what stands out to you the most?
I would say it was, for me personally, a nonstop party. Like, we were talking about it beforehand. Like, there's like the local bar, McMahon's, down the block, and literally every person that walked in, whether it was Roz going on Woode, whether it was the people from the league office, writers, it was like, yeah! I was like,
it was a party.
Yeah, it was a party. And I think the thing that really stood out to me was just the sort of level of joy that really emanated from the fan base, because I feel especially New York City, like, we don't win much in championships these days, so the Liberty and Gotham are the last real champions alive in a sense. So it's a situation where they really were able to sort of like grab, like, it was a groundswell throughout the year. Like, we saw the attendance consistently perk up. In 23, it went up, and then 24 consistently. And then throughout the playoffs, we're getting 17,000 a night in the building. And I think they set attendance records in the finals both ways. So it really felt like a groundswell of just, this is the moment that everything we built as a league has come together in this moment. We got 5 tremendous games across the board both ways. So fans who were new to the league in 2024 got to watch the very best and just really hard fought, intense, emotional basketball, which is what you really want in a postseason setting. And then to have it cap off with the wildest overtime we've seen in ages, and just the sort of like pure heart we saw from players on both teams, and it really sort of come together in that moment. I thought it was really amazing. And on a professional level, I think I've said it on here before, covering the parade is like the most fun I've ever had in work ever. Like, just walking around with my lanyard and just looking at police being like, hey, I'm going over there. And then I'm being like, get out of here. I'm like, look at this. This is what happens when your team, when the team you cover is win a championship. You don't get heckled. You don't get hassled.
You don't.
It's liberating in some respects.
Liberating. The Liberty liberated us. I'm happy you had that experience. You know, I was walking around with a cane and a boot, so I did not have that. So the Liberty are just going to have to win again. And I will talk a little bit about my favorite things, but first we're going to hear from Sabrina. And also, I got a delivery that's about to ring my doorbell. So we're going to do that. Let's hear from Sab after the win in Barclays. And then we will get back to some recollection, recalling, reminiscing. And Damien, yes, I did see this. I already started this, and we will get into that later. But first, we're going to celebrate the holiday. Here's Sabrina Ionescu.
Faith into the idea that a year of chemistry would really be the next step of this team going forward. How vindicating is it to reward that faith?
Oh, I mean, it means everything. You know, to be able to have gotten how far we did last year, it sucks. Like, we lost on this court last year, and to be able to see how far we've come as a group in just 1 year of playing with each other, having that under our belt, I'm excited for next season because it's like we're not even scratching the surface of what we're capable of. We just have better chemistry, and I think now adding this championship, like next year, it's the standard is set, and now we're going to continue to raise that bar and compete for multiple championships. Yeah, I mean, I think when everything settles, this is like what excited me about coming here. For me, obviously, I think it's deeper than that. Like, I got drafted here as the one pick. I felt like the weight of the world on my back to be able to come and bring a championship here. I get hurt and I'm not back for about 1.5 years to be able to be myself, and there was just this belief in me and this from this organization and this fan base that just welcomed me with open arms and just helped me get up every morning and just continue to fight, continue to be the best that I can, and wanting to give it my all. And every time I've stepped out on the court, I've given it my all, whether I've been injured, whether I haven't, and to be able to just get this like kind of satisfaction of knowing like we did it after everyone's continued to pour into me. It's why I do what I do every day. Get up, and you know, there's days when you don't feel like you want to do it and you can't go anymore, and you just continue to push. And to be able to do it for this organization that, you know, believed in me to come in here and win, it just, like, I can't put that into words.
So you're still finishing your career here as a New Yorker?
Yeah, I mean, I hope so.
So Sab saying she hopes that she'll finish her career in New York City. We're going to talk a little bit about how real that is, especially with basically everybody being a free agent, Brian, because of the CBA and everything that's going on. And even honestly, some things, you know, the big Ellie-sized elephant in the room, the fact that we got rid of Sandy Brondello. But here's going to be the rundown. We're going to talk a lot about this New York Liberty squad after I do my reminiscing. We're going to hear from Jonathan Kolb. I know I was very irate, and I've talked on the podcast before. The New York Liberty did not do exit interviews, so our deep dives in the offseason are going to look a little different because we didn't get to talk to the players. And we did get to talk to the GM. I was grateful that I was able to be there live and in person. However, I also think that there was some gatekeeping that happened even in that last media availability with Jonathan Kolb of the 2025 season that I didn't appreciate. And I hope that's not the trend that we're seeing. But we are going to hear from Jonathan Kolb, why the decision, but then also, you know, how much did the injuries impact the New York Liberty season and also their ultimate decision to part ways with Sandy Brondello? A question had come up even on this podcast, Brian, with regard to hardships and if that was something the New York Liberty considered. Jonathan Kolb did address that, so I want to hear about that. You heard Sabrina. She says she hopes she can finish her career in New York. Well, we heard from Jonathan Kolb on what he thinks about the core group, so that being Brianna Stewart, Jonquel Jones, and Sabrina Ionescu. And then the evolution of basketball. This is something that has been a part of the conversation in the WNBA. I clocked this. I think maybe I was talking on CBS Sports, but I've been saying at least since Christy Sides got fired. That to me was and then you look at the Vicky Johnson, you look at all of those firings that happened leading into the 2025 season. And to me, there's a troubling trend in some ways that we're seeing happen in the WNBA. And I'm going to break that down, the style of basketball, things of that nature. Then Sabrina's usage. And actually, Lucas asked this question to Jonathan, and it's talking about a backcourt duo. You know, for years, Brian, I've been saying you have to find a complementary piece to Sabrina Ionescu. And did we find that in Tosh? Was it better with Sloot? Is there still a better match out there? And then this idea of innovation, you're going to hear a lot from Jonathan Kolb in the clips that I have curated for y'all. You're going to hear him talk about innovation, wanting to evolve, things of that nature. What does that actually look like for New York Liberty basketball? What does that look like for the WNBA? But first, I get to reminisce Ionescu. I mean, that was such a special championship run. I've been a New Yorker my whole life until 4 years ago when I moved to Tulsa, Oklahoma. I've been a New York Liberty fan my whole life since going on 30 years, literally almost my entire life, which is wild. So y'all know I'm definitely in the Dirty 30 club. They about to kick me out, but that's all right. I ain't leaving. But it was such a joy. I mean, there's a clip on the Black Rosie Instagram of me getting emotional, and I didn't think I was going to get emotional, but I did. And then I got it back because we were working. We had a game to cover, but it was emotional. Seeing Teresa Weatherspoon there, seeing Sue Licks there, it was really special to me. Honestly, the celebration, even though I wish we would have had more access to the players, being able to go to Barclays after the championship, which is literally today 1 year old today, going there and having Remy Ma, Fat Joe, it was just a vibe. Like, it was a vibe that it was quintessential New York vibes for me. Like you said, everyone was out late. There was folks out on the street, like you mentioned, coming out of the bar. People were just in like little pockets. Like, it took you back to those days, Brian, where you would just have block parties, and, people were just outside hanging out, having a good time. It was just really good vibes. And it felt at the time also like this was the start of something special in New York. Now this is where we have to come down from the high a little bit, because as we sit here a year removed exactly from that championship, the New York Liberty didn't even make the finals. They didn't even get out of the first round, Brian, even though they did get the hottest. Listen, I'm leaving here with something. Y'all understand me. Y'all better know. Y'all better know. Anyway, I think that this team, I have a lot of questions. And a year ago, I didn't have as many questions as I do now. And a year ago, it felt like we had a handle on what was coming as far as the evolution of the WNBA, as far as where the New York Liberty wanted to go. And as you'll hear from the clips that we've curated for you today, it seems like maybe some of that was in question during the championship run. And I want to hear from y'all, because I'm of mixed mind. I think there's some things that we heard from Jonathan Kolb, Brian, that I agreed with. There are other things that I heard from Jonathan Kolb that I disagreed with. But as it stands now, before we get into the clips, Brian, I'll have you go first. We're a few weeks, removed now from the news that the New York Liberty would not bring back Sandy Brondello. How are you feeling about that news today versus when you first got the news?
When I first heard it, because we recorded, I think recorded like a few hours after, so we were just sort of processing in real time. Now that we're about a month removed, sometimes when I hear something, whenever I come across something surprising, I'm like, whoa, what happened? And then when I hear the explanation, I'm like, I see where it's coming from. I think I get it. So at first, when it happened, I was like, oh shoot, this is really happening. Like, wow. And then when I think about it more, I'm like, I kind of get it. And I think the press conference really sort of crystallized a lot of it, because I feel like for us, we talked a lot throughout the year of, okay, this group, they're really good at getting to the rim, but they're not getting to the rim enough. That's a thing. That's a thing that needed to get addressed, and that was observed from upstairs. This year, they're surprisingly awful on the boards. What's the cause of it? They don't know, so they're going to have to explore to figure that out. And then there's so much where I'm like, even when he mentioned, okay, our offensive rating was the same as last year, it was first in 2024, but it's sixth in 2025. And we're going to get to a little bit later, but that's the sign of a league that's rapidly getting better, consistently getting better and better and better and better and better. And your apex offense of 2024 is middle of the pack now. And it's like, do we wanna just like stay with this thing, or is there an opportunity for us to find an improvement somewhere? I think of it now that I'm a little bit further, I think of it more in terms of like roster building, where it's, oh, you want a championship, we should just bring everybody back. And it's like, that may not be the best bet, especially if there's room to improve somewhere. Like, we take a look at the last couple of champions. Like when Vegas won in 2022, what did they do that offseason? It got them in trouble, but they got Candace Parker. And then in 23 going into 24, how did they try to get better? They brought in Tiffany Hayes. When they won last year, how did they try to get better? They brought in Tosh Cloud. So on the roster side, there's always a sense of, okay, can we stay put and bring things back exactly as it was again? That may not be the best bet. So how can we try to maintain as much continuity as we can while also still finding ways to get better and improve? And I think for the Liberty, they're in a situation where I think in a perfect world, they maintain the core pieces of the roster and then make sort of like tweaks on the margins in addition to a new head coach, and then that built-in main continuity helps stabilize things. But it's going to be really hard because we really don't know. We don't even know what the expansion draft is going to look like, and we have two at a date to be determined whenever the heck the CBA gets done. So it's going to be a lot of things in the air all at once, and it's going to make a hard process finding a head coach even more challenging because you don't really know what roster they're going to walk into coming into whenever basketball returns.
100%. Amir, y'all got to stop with this. The sky is not falling, wasn't falling, isn't falling, will not be falling. Like Brian just said, what was good enough for first ended up sixth. That's middle of the pack. This is not a team that missed the playoffs. This is not a team that finished last. And this is a team that the bottom started falling out when they had injuries to their core players, like Brian just said. So it's one thing to make those observations, but the whole point that I don't, Brian can say what he wants to say about this, but I'm going 10 toes down on this team should have been able to rebound, and they didn't. They should have been able to rebound, and they didn't. I think that teaches you a lot about all of the things that Brian just said, and it teaches you about things like Brian also alluded to about roster construction. And what has Erica Lindsay Ayala, the founder of Black Rosie Media, head Black Rosie in charge, been telling y'all? When something ain't working and it's a roster issue, that's a front office issue. The front office makes the roster. The coach manages the roster. So some of the things that we're talking about, these aren't necessarily things that Coach Sandy Brondello could or could not have changed because it's not her job. Now, if you want to talk about X's and O's and execution and things of that nature, 100%. And we'll get into some of those things. But this was a combination of a roster stalling out while the rest of the league got better and a roster being injured. So the sky falling, no, the sky was not falling. The sky was not falling. The league got better and the New York Liberty were hurt. But I do think that Damian and R. Varnell hit exactly what I've been thinking. I agree with you, Brian. I didn't like it at first, and there's still some things I don't like about this move and about the direction the New York or the WNBA are taking. There's still a lot of things I don't like, but Damian hit this on the head. And again, why Jonathan Kolb has to get this right. And I've talked about it before because he did not get it right with the basketball genius. And nobody talks about it. So maybe I'll be the one to explicitly say it. All according to everything that we know, and maybe some things that we know but we don't talk about, that man was having inappropriate relations. So there's that. Not great. But also, there were limitations to his coaching style. And he wanted he wanted a 5-out system, or I don't know, the organization wanted a 5-out system when they didn't have the personnel for that. So he became, putting, again, some of the extracurriculars aside, he became the scapegoat for a system that didn't have the roster to match. So now, if we put all of that together in what am I saying? Hey, y'all better clip this. Y'all, I hope y'all are ready to clip this. I hope y'all appreciate what I'm about to say. I agree with Damien. Liberty Nation better cross their fingers that Kolb doesn't screw up coaching-wise, talent-wise, player-wise. He's right. He's right. R. Varnell gets me as well. I still feel not keeping Sandy was a knee-jerk reaction. So JK better hit a home run with this new coach hire. And we're going to talk about some of the candidates potentially. And this is where Damien, see, now I got to disagree with you, man. You know, the sky isn't falling, but we got to, you know, grass is green. The sky is blue. And I got to say, I don't agree. Yes, I'm still mad. Because if you move on from Sandy Brondello, because of all the things we're about to hear from Jonathan Kolb on this episode, there's no indication that Noel Quinn can do what the Liberty need a new head coach to do better than Sandy. There's no indication that Noel Quinn will, in my opinion, will be a better coach for what the New York Liberty are saying they want, Brian. I don't know. Do you agree? Do you disagree? I don't know.
Because I think the critiques from Noe, from everything I observed from watching you guys and Tempestaci talk and just sort of like keeping up with Storm fans across the board, it feels like Noe, the big problem, whether that's it could be a roster problem with Talisa and how she put the roster together, but it was Noe only plays 6 people. And the critique, I think Liberty fans across the board, and even somewhat in what JK was saying, was that bench utilization could always be better, considering that the talent was there on the team. I think injuries sort of spoke more to New York's context and their problems this year.
That's what Stephen AM is saying right now.
Yeah, and I think to Stephen Am's point, I'm sorry, they persevered considering the injuries, and I think to the roster's positive, we did see career years from some players before they got hurt. Like a Kennedy Burke, for example, was a legit 6th Woman of the Year candidate. I think she was still like in the top 3 or 4 as far as finalists went this year. But when she had her calf injury, she came back and it just wasn't there. And then in game 3, she had perhaps her worst game as a member of the Liberty. So I think that's where roster construction is a positive, because we saw KB flourish and have the best season of her career leading up to when she got hurt in late July. And then that was just one more thing compounded onto what sort of turned troublesome towards the end when everyone kept getting hurt. And I think when it comes to the building a roster, we'll probably get to her later, but the early stretch is more of a positive weighing in her favor versus where the struggles at the end proved to be a negative on her resume.
You're talking about Sandy?
For KB, as far as like her being,
KB, I'm sorry.
Yeah, I guess on the Sandy side.
Sandy and Noel, you know, I have to agree with R. Varnell here. Quinn, absolutely not. No. I just don't. It's not a good fit. Tiffy and Co. saying Noel Quinn could be more successful than Sandy Brondello with Sav and Stewie. Just needs consistent talent. I don't agree. I don't agree with that at all. And I mean, we have to have Hobeta on, because when you talk about Stewie played under Quinn. And I don't know if Quinn was the rub, but she definitely decided to leave Seattle.
Yeah. And I
Also,
think
hold on, I just want to go back. Okay, so apparently, I don't know. Apparently, folks didn't know why the basketball genius did not come back. Listen, all right, we'll talk about that on another podcast. I thought like it was just the secret, that nobody talked about, but we'll talk about that. But yeah, fam, there's some impropriety, some things amok there. But yeah, I'm sorry, Brian. Go into more with regard to Quinn.
Yeah, so with Tiffany and Cole's comment, I think the problem with Noe in this context is that for Seattle, a lot of their sort of like problems were that they didn't get to the rim enough, even with the acquisition of Brittany Sykes by the deadline. And I think for the Liberty, it's a situation where do you want like how are you as a coach sort of looking to get those shot attempts at the rim more frequently? Because that was the thing Sandy talks about a lot. Like if you've been at one Sandy person, you've been at 20 when she's constantly saying paint's a great. And I feel like that was an emphasis for her. We just didn't get it as much this year, whether that's a context of the injuries. I'm leaning more towards that, but it's also a situation where how are you sort of drawing things up to sort of like get more paint touches? How are you sort of generating easy looks? And I think also we'll get to, you mentioned Sabrina up top, but we'll get to that too, in the sense of how are you scheming up easy shots for your sharpshooter from deep? And it really, I think a demerit to Sandy this year was that it just didn't feel easy for her. And it's supposed to, like, when you have the talent that you have, like, it shouldn't be such a grind. Even accounting for injuries, it felt like such a grind for them to score on so many occasions. And I think that's where, how can you sort of like draw things up to make things a little bit easier? How are we sort of like, is it a matter of, okay, I want Sab not taking as many pull-up jumpers. I want her trying to get even more downhill, because to Sabrina's credit, she shot a career best at the rim this year, but those driving lanes really weren't present like that. And I feel like, to Tammy's point there, I think also Seattle was so unique in that they really, their context is different from New York, because they don't really have, outside of NECA, they don't really have that other go-to sort of like shot creator like that. Skylar's excellent, but as far as being like, hey, Skylar, you got to take 20 shots tonight, like that's not what you want from her. She can do it on occasion, but that's not if it's Skylar, you got to do all our scoring, you're running into a tough problem. And I think too,
too bad they don't have a young number 2 pick. They could have played more.
Yeah, and I saw the TikTok you posted in the Slack. I'm like, young lady, you popped your tendon back in? What?
Yep.
Is that in and out? And it didn't hurt? I'm like, I heard that, and I wanted to yell on her behalf, but I'm like, oh my God. And I guess to the other point with Noe, as it's a merit, is you have to utilize way more of your bench than the regular season, and she just didn't. Like, there'd be nights where she's only playing like 7 people, and I'm like, it's July. Like, you do that in October. You don't do that now. Like,
I mean, listen, don't even get me started on that. I don't think that Noah Quinn is a better X's and O's coach than Sandy Brondello. I don't think it's a wide gap, or as wide a gap as their experience would be. I think that they have different skill sets. Noelle Quinn has potential, but I think that she never quite got into her rhythm as a head coach in Seattle. And Noelle Quinn won a title with Seattle as a player, as an assistant coach, but she ain't win nothing as a head coach. So I don't know if that's what you meant, but we will talk about other coaches. But now, Brian, we've talked about a lot, and some of this is going to circle back, including Sabrina's usage in a clip. But let's get back to what Jonathan Kolb said about the move.
I'm really excited today to talk to you. I want to talk about a myriad of topics, as I'm sure you do. We want to talk about the season, want to talk about the future. But I don't think that there's a topic probably more pressing than our decision to not exercise the option on the contract of Sandy Brondello. At the outset, I think it's really important that I stress and emphasize that this decision was in no way punitive, nor was it reactive, but it's instead rooted in being proactive. Nor was this decision based solely on the results of this past season. I actually think Sandy did a good job navigating this group through uncharted waters, through injuries and a lack of availability. And we've got a great level of appreciation for Sandy Brondello, the head coach, as well as Sandy Brondello, the person. This decision comes after a thorough examination of what the New York Liberty need as we move forward into a future of an ever-evolving WNBA. Very serious thought and consideration was made to retaining Sandy, but ultimately we determined that evolution and innovation is what is needed at this time.
So evolution is what is needed at this time. Sandy Brondello did a good job after the injuries, not something that was only, or not something where the 2025 season was only considered. It's not easy to hear, Brian, excuse me, but that is one of the things where I was like, okay, because I do feel that the league, excuse me, is trending in a certain direction. I don't agree with some of it, as we will continue to talk about, but there is a trend. And if y'all don't know what I'm talking about, I'm going to make it clear. And I think we'll hear some clips that allude to this. There is more NBA experience that's coming into the WNBA. And as I've said in our Slack channel, there's nothing wrong with that. And there are women now, thankfully, who even 10 years ago, where you had the Christy Tollivers and the Carol Lawsons of the world, who were active WNBA players who were not allowed in NBA practices, or were not allowed to hold NBA jobs for if that NBA team was owned by the WNBA, or excuse me, in the case of Tolliver could not take a job in Washington on the NBA side because she was playing for Washington on the WNBA side. And that stunted and stalled her progression as not just a coach, but specifically an NBA coach. And why is that important? Why am I talking about this? Why am I talking about Carol Lawson, who dang near had a Duke team, had South Carolina on the ropes?
Had him.
Fighting for their life, is about to be the USA basketball coach for the next Olympics. Why am I talking about that? The importance of their trajectory as coaches on the NBA side being stalled, because as we see the impact and influence and the fact that more coaches with NBA experience, even if it's just as a video coach or whatever, WNBA teams that are also starting to be owned again by NBA owners, they're starting to trend in getting assistant coaches on their benches that have NBA experience. And so if you look at the fact that Carol Lawson and Christy Tolliver and Teaspoon, Becky Hammon, they are the first wave of women that have NBA coaching experience that are former WNBA players. That's a very new trend within the last decade. The league will be 30 seasons in its next season. So for over half of the existence of the WNBA, it has been hard for WNBA players to get NBA coaching experience by design. Just keep that in mind, because we're going to keep talking about it. And I cannot say this enough. So, all right, it was not, a punishment. It was not something that was done without thought. So what happened, and did injury have anything to do with it? Let's hear more from Jonathan Kolb.
Sandy Brondello will always be remembered here as the first coach to win a championship for the New York Liberty. And what she accomplished here is not only everlasting, but it's necessary for us to evolve into what is next.
That word again.
So I'm very grateful for the relationship we built this past 4 years and will continue to have as we move forward. And we thank Sandy Brondello for everything that she's done for this franchise.
I want to stop there. We're going to hear a little more from Jonathan Kolb, but he keeps talking about evolution. And the next clip, I think, Brian, will be him talking about the injuries, but it just sounds continually like Jonathan Kolb and the New York Liberty, and Kolb says this decision was his to make. I think that's in a clip coming up. But he made this decision thinking about the future of the organization. And I do think that although I'm not completely sold on the decision to move on from Sandy Brondello at this time after this season, I do think that there's a plateau to her ability to evolve in the way that the league is evolving. I do think that. And she needs to be in a situation where she and the general manager are in lockstep, and that she has a roster that's built in a way that it complements her strong points. And I think the positionless basketball does that, but you need the right tools in that positionless mix for it to work. And she pressed the right buttons. And we heard from Sabrina earlier that she got this team to focus in on, we need our starting five to be solid, and we'll work on the bench later. But also, she was the one who, despite some people not wanting international talent on WNBA teams, she went to 2 young Germans to win a title, to win a championship. And so I do think that Sandy Brondello at times, and I've said this even when she was with Phoenix, at times I'm like, Sandy, what are we doing? What are we doing? She made me very uncomfortable at times. But ultimately, I trust her larger vision and how she does work behind the scenes when the cameras aren't on to prepare her team. And at times that means difficult conversations. At times that means, people aren't playing in the position or the minutes that they want, but it works. That's the value that I see in Sandy Brondello. Brian, how about you?
Yeah, I think I'm biased for Sandy because Sandy's always a great hang. She's always cool to talk to. She's very kind and warm and open hearted with us as media. She's always good for conversation. She'll talk basketball. She'll talk about the Miami Soul days. I'm like, yeah, that's dope. Tell me more about that. So Sandy as a person is A+ in my book always. That part is never gonna be a knock on her. I think, like you mentioned to the Phoenix point, it's also a situation where it's we're kind of getting we shouldn't be sort of stuck at this stage after we won a championship, and it's oh boy, this move I don't like. Oh boy, you guys in 2021 Phoenix, you guys let game 3 and 4 slip in Chicago. We probably could have even there are so many moments in 23. It's oh boy, nothing else. And there are things that we talked about even in 23, like you mentioned, the point about getting the starters right. It came with a cost, and that cost came. Everyone ran out of gas, and Sandy, to her credit, owned it. Erica, you actually remember? Yep, she was I messed it up. I should have I should have used the bench more. She course corrected in 24 to a certain degree, and the group had just enough gas in the tank to make it through. And the forever mode of Caleb Thornton helped push it over the line too. And this year, it's a situation where a lot of fans in here and elsewhere were no, we can't get anybody else in when it looks like people are kind of self-destructing on the court. Really, this is the unit all the way through, and it's just not. When the margins are so thin and everyone is sort of racing to catch you in particular, those moments are like, oh boy, are we just gonna do this? Are we just not? Like, hey, Isabel Harrison's been quite good for you all season, and she can't get on the court when y'all can't rebound. And even in this do or die game, people are just like letting offensive rebounds fall in front of them, and it's only a 2-possession game. You guys are fighting back to, like, you guys were down 15, but you guys fought back, and it's like, no, like, you're not. It's like those, when the stakes are so high for a championship level team, things like that get magnified and take on even more importance. And I think, to the evolution point that Cole was talking about, it's you'd rather be a year early on something than a year late? Because if it's a year early, it's like you get that sort of like jolt to your system, sort of like shocks you back to where you want to be. Whereas if you wait a year late, it's like, oh boy, like, another year with the best player in the franchise history, Brandon Stewart, not where we wanted to be. And Stewie, tough MFer, but hey, that's still a lot more miles on her, a lot heavy miles. Like, what can we do to make the most of it? And then it becomes a little bit harder, especially in the context of a new CBA. And I guess now that I think about it, the CBA point that I mentioned earlier as a thing that might be a problem point could kind of work out to be an advantage in a sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jonathan definitely talked about that. I want to come back to something that you said regarding Sandy, because those are a lot of the challenges that Roberta and I talk about with Noelle Quinn, which is all the more reason that I want Sandy Brondello to have another head coaching job.
Yeah.
I want Noelle Quinn to have another head coaching job. Swapping those two and Sandy going to Seattle and Quinn coming to New York do not change anything for the teams or for the coaches. In some ways, those two teams were very similar in what didn't work. I hear what you're saying. The two-man game between Skylar and Nneka, Sab and Stewie would thrive under Noelle Quinn's playbook. How much of that was Noelle Quinn's playbook versus great players figuring out how to make great plays? Because Seattle did not rebound well. Yeah. Seattle did not go to their bench. They did not play their number 2 overall pick. You know what I'm saying? So I because I have utmost respect for Sandy and Noelle Quinn, do not come to New York, and Sandy, do not go to Seattle.
Erica, can I say on that one? Can I say on the Noe point a little bit more to Tiffy's comment? I think one of the consistent problems I had with Seattle was that they just didn't take enough 3-pointers at all. Like, I think they only took like 12 3-pointers a game. And to the evolution point that Cole talked about, and I think has been really the sort of like greater sort of theme of basketball from 2013 onward to now, in the men's game especially, but now also in the women's game, is that you just can't survive when you don't take 3-pointers. Like, when your offense doesn't generate clean open threes, whether in the corners, both breaks, whatever, like, you're just not gonna survive. And I think for Noe, I don't want to. I want to be careful not to ding her too much, because it's that roster doesn't have shooters like that. So
that's another thing.
Yeah,
and again, we don't talk about the Seattle Storm in detail here, and I think that's fair. And I appreciate you pulling back. But if you listen to an episode of Tempestagi Talk, go listen to episodes that we did in the off season. We talked about how that roster made no sense. They had no true 2-guard, and perimeter shooting, like you said, is important. But again, I don't want to stay too much on Noelle Quinn and Seattle. Let's move on to some more clips from Jonathan Kolb speaking in the only media that we got, because as Damian said, we did not get exit interviews. How come the Liberty players didn't do exit interviews? I don't know, Damian. I wish I could tell you. I really wish I could tell you, because a lot of us, myself included, media asked when it was noted that they might not do interviews. And the response that we got was, we literally just lost. So that's not confirmed. We literally just lost. And I'm like, oh man, good thing I wasn't watching the game and knew that you just lost. But hence why I'm asking about exit interviews. Anyway, I digress. But let's go back to the only exit interview that we did get from the organization. And that came from Jonathan Kolb.
It seems that you guys are trending the right way until injuries happen that no one can control. Mm-hmm. What made you want to make this change? And it seems also from what the player said to Maddie after the game the other night that they seemed supportive of her. So what made you go, okay, I think we need to make a change and go a different direction for next year?
Yeah, I think it's a very fair question and a natural one. I think that you're somewhat playing with fire if you make decisions based on the past. I think our organization has always taken pride in being innovative and looking forward and being future-oriented and process-based. And for us, we not only evaluate throughout the season our own team, but we also evaluate the league. And with where this league is going, we felt very confident that we need to move forward in a way that we can evolve and continue to move with the league, if that makes sense.
Just building off of what Doug just asked regarding players' reaction when Maddie asked following the game, how much were they aware that you guys could potentially go in a different direction? And then following that game, what were conversations like with the players about this change?
Yeah. Look, my phone's always on and my office door is always open. So I'm always open and available for feedback from players. And I do believe we pride ourselves in being a player-led organization. But at the same time, I'm also proud of the respect that we built from the front office to the players in the sense that there's a level of trust that leadership will make decisions. We had exit meetings and we go through those thoroughly with our players. But ultimately, the decision's mine. Hardships have a lot of complexity to them in the sense of, for the situation we would have been in, we would have had to attach 2 injuries to those hardships. And what you do is you lock in the amount of games that those players will have to miss. When you're dealing with the injuries that we went through this year, especially to those of Jonquel Jones and Breanna Stewart, there's a moving timeline for when they are going to return. And obviously you would like them to return as soon as possible within reason. We didn't feel comfortable that...
Sorry, I'm having a little bit of an issue with our overlays here. Hang tight. Please hold.
If we brought somebody in that they would, 1, play, and 2, be worth potentially pushing back the return dates of those players. Then later in the year, we did give serious consideration to applying for a hardship with the league. At that point in time, players we were interested in bringing that we felt could contribute were not interested in that. And other players sought out other opportunities with teams that would have had a longer stay and be able to prove themselves in ways that maybe means something more for their future in the WNBA. And then, quite honestly, at another stage when we looked at it, players that we were interested in were already overseas. And I just think that speaks more to the rules of our league currently that are in place than, whether a hardship player would or wouldn't have impacted our season.
Listen, there was a lot in those clips, Brian. Like, in JK's way, he was kind of dragging the league.
Kathy Engelbert, one more enemy to the list.
Oh my gosh. I mean, I wanted to play that clip, even though I had edited it. That's always a weird thing to say. I made the edits differently. Edited it. I made the edits differently, but I was like, let's just have it rock through, because I know it's something that came up here. And at the time, I didn't really have a good answer. I did talk to Jonathan Kolb, and this will also be my way of bringing up Emma Miesemann. I did talk to Jonathan Kolb when Miesemann was there, so early August. And a thing that he said also is that, they had the salary cap room. And he talks about that in his exit interview, that they're in a good place salary cap wise, but they were limited to how many players they could carry on a roster. So if you had more roster spots, then Jonathan Kolb wouldn't have had to apply for hardship, which means that he wouldn't have had to put one of his stars, either Breanna Stewart or Jonquel Jones, depending on the time, on long-term injury effectively, because he would have had the roster spots and already had the money. So that's a very interesting wrinkle when it comes to contextualizing the New York Liberty season and why they did or didn't do certain things, including hardships. Now, I stand on this. The New York Liberty, and someone mentioned it, I think maybe was Al earlier, talking about, or Stephen A, I'm sorry. Jonathan Kolb took a big bet on Emma, one that any GM would have taken. I mean, Cheryl Miller already said she chose wrong. So there are a lot of folks trying to bring them in. And Cloud and Izzy felt like solid gets too. I think that there were some solid moves made, Brian, including, I think the Miesemann acquisition was huge.
Yeah.
But the injuries and the impacts that the injuries had on the rotations, it just seemed a hill too steep to climb, at least for Sandy Brondello and her staff.
Yeah, I think we talked about it at the time in the summer, but it's always hard when you have a vision of a roster and then one of your top people go down and everyone scales up a notch, where it's like you're a number 4 on the org chart, now you're number 2, and it's oh no, I'm not really capable of that. Like I'm really good at my particular slot and my role, but if I'm sliding up, it's more challenging for me. And then they had to sort of like deal with that like 8 times consecutively. So it's, oh hey, JJ's back. Oh no, Stewie's gone. It's, oh, JJ and Stewie are back. Oh no, someone lands on Sabrina's foot and her toe was messed up.
Her neck is, can't turn her neck.
Can't turn her head.
He's gone. Niara's out.
And I think to that point, I was thinking about it a little while ago. We'll probably dive into it in the winter. Like Cole mentioned, that not having Benajelini Hamilton was so critical for the season not going where they wanted. And he mentioned just having that other scorer, that other person who can score on all 3 levels, who can get their own shot, who can isolate for this team. And that's when your offense tends to sort of get in the mud, you can just be like, oh, hey, give them the ball, get the hell out their way. They can do something for you. And outside of Stewie, they didn't really have that on the perimeter. Because I think I wrote about her over the summer, and I kind of think that I think all of us were expecting a big leap from Leo this season, but we just didn't get it. I think for her, a lot of that is context, where it's that she's played like nonstop basketball across multiple continents with no break for the better part of a year and change. And then we found out in game 3, Leo's a maniac. So she fractures her rib and is still playing basketball. I'm like,
I know. And I didn't cut that clip. I'm going to put it on social media because that was a la like 2019 Elena Deladon level foolishness.
He said, I'm like, oh my God.
And exactly what I expected. I did not think she was coming back. And then I was like, Erica, it's Leo. Like, of course she's. I do wonder though, if going overseas middle of the season, do you think that will have an impact on Leo with the Liberty or in the future of the W? Or maybe should it have an impact?
I think I think yes, because like the W calendar is so unique in that a lot of the sort of like international competitions, because pretty much a lot of players in the league play for their home countries, like, or countries they have citizenship in. So those tournaments sort of come up at particular times, because like, even in 2022, like the Aces, for example, they won the championship and Asia Wilson was on a flight to Australia the very next day to hop into a World Cup competition, which was starting like during the playoff. So the schedule is so unique, and that even next year, the World Cup, I believe, is going to be in Germany. So we know. Yeah, it's
Coach Olaf.
Yeah, Olaf is.
So I wanna go back a little though to Leo, because we can talk about the schedule. But I guess what I'm saying is, do you think her decision to continually play basketball, as opposed to Niara, who did not go to play for Team Germany, or Marine, who did not go to play for Team France, or Satu or Gabby, all of those players decided to prioritize the WNBA ahead of a new CBA where everyone is a UFA, basically, except for 3 people. Leo did not. The question I want to know, does that hurt her stock? Or does what she did in 2024 and comparative to what she worked through in 2025, is that enough to give, a good sample size of what she can be?
I think so, absolutely. Like I truly believe that Leo can be an all-star caliber player in this league because I think the tools are there for her. And I think based on how she played with BN24, how they were able to really sort of like unlock different parts of her game the more it progressed, I feel like that stretch is enough for me to be like, okay, I see the vision, a rangy wing who can guard 4 positions and do it well and can sort of play through anything and is one of the toughest players in the sport. Like that player, like you don't, it's one of those things where it's like you don't pay like a super max for that kind of thing, but it's, oh hey, if I've got a lot of money, you're getting it. Like that that player does not leave the building for me.
No, 100%. I agree with
you. Yeah. I'm like,
I agree with you. And again, you wrote a feature talking about the fatigue level and that Leo's next evolution, a la in a different way, but somewhat similar. What Marine has had to focus on is that you need to have the confidence to do this specific thing when this specific thing is available.
Yeah.
And you have to be selfish because we are paying you, to your point, to do this specific thing when this specific thing comes up. So, listen, Damien's comment here is the second one talking about the New York Liberty being quote unquote too old. Oh, Hayes also mentioned it. No. I rebuke that. Especially because you have Jonquel Jones, Sabrina Ionescu, and Brianna Stewart who make up the core. And as far as I can see, that's a pretty solid core. But what did, or I just want to go to, since we were talking about Leo. Leo was overworked and played a little tired this season. However, going forward, Leo is a very valuable player and we need her here. I agree 100%. And she might not be the immediate core, but she's pretty dang close. But here's what Jonathan Kolb had to say about the big 3 in New York.
When it comes to this core group, when in Phoenix, we were able to talk to Stewie, Sabrina, and Jonquel, they expressed that they want to continue and run it back. I guess I'm just curious, how much confidence after your meetings with them do you feel that they want to be back here?
I have the utmost confidence that they want to be back with us.
Okay, next topic, next question. Sounds like the core is going to be back. So whether y'all think they're old or not, they're not freaking going.
Yeah.
They're not freaking going. They're not going. And I think that's a good move. I think that you maximize Brianna Stewart as long as Brianna Stewart wants to be on the New York Liberty. Because all this, oh, she's too old. Once again, you'll need to put some respect on Stu York City. Once again, she came through. And I starred this. I want to come back to this comment from Winsome because I think it is going to hit this point. Who showed up the most in the playoffs? And if your answer isn't Stewie, then you are a lie. Winsome saying, I think it was a championship mentality that wasn't consistent for the team. I've been telling y'all that. So you can blame, the sky falling here, the this, that, and the third. This team was capable of a lot more than they accomplished. If I even factor in the injuries, there were times that this team just didn't show up. Emotionally, mentally, did not show up. And I can't understand why. I can't help but compare. This is Winsome. I'm reading Winsome's comment. I can't help but compare how the Fever rallied to get to the semifinals through injuries. I'm going to add a little context here, Winsome. I hope you don't mind. They had 5 season-ending injuries, 6 if you include their coach. One of their assistant coaches also had a season-ending injury. And, again, the best thing to ever happen to women's basketball since women's basketball, Caitlin Clark. They had 5 season-ending injuries and made it to the semifinals and took the Aces the distance.
And they might have won if Kelsey didn't. If Kelsey wasn't season injury number 7.
Oh my God! So she literally tired her. You want to talk about running out of gas? That's what running out of gas looks like for real.
Yep.
For real. I think I said this on CBS Sports. Unfortunately, I know what extreme exhaustion looks like. I've run myself that far down physically when I used to play competitive softball, and heat fatigue. And when she grabbed that man's hand, I was like, she's about to pass out. Like that was wild. And also put some respect on Kelsey Mitchell. But this is not an Indiana Fever podcast. But when some like you ate, I had that starred, sis. I was ready. I was ready to go because I had some thoughts. Okay.
Also,
The mentality. Go for it, Brian.
I want to tie you guys' point together, and Cole mentioned it. Like some of the losses this year, where it's like you lose to a Connecticut team that was improving in the second half, but still bottom tier team. Losing in Dallas, bottom tier team. Losing to Chicago, bottom tier team. And sort of tie that to the Indiana piece of it. It's the okay, you may not be where you want to be, but if you play if you sort of like get the matchup you want, you might be able to sort of make something out of it. Like they had trouble with Phoenix all season. Oh, bad matchup, can't guard inverters. Danger time. Indiana, like they fought through it and they drew a favorable matchup in Atlanta where it's like, oh, this is their first time getting there. And we talked about it in the newsletter. We talked about it on here. We talked about it when the Liberty came back from 20 against Atlanta. Atlanta, if you let them, they will melt down gladly. They will gladly melt down. You put them under pressure, you can really take advantage. And that's where having those bad losses really sort of like come home to roost at the end, because now it's a situation where you're a lower seed, which means you have a tougher opponent and you have a championship level opponent in Phoenix. And then if you were able to get through that, Minnesota. Whereas if you handled your business earlier and you were a 2 or 3 seed, you might have drawn a theoretically Golden State, theoretically a Seattle. Like you would have had an easier matchup and you would have started at home as compared to ending the season in Chicago, flying to Phoenix immediately and then doing the back and forth that way. So that's it. Those bad losses, like it all comes out in the wash in the end. And those losses where it's like, yo, what are y'all doing tonight? And then now it's we can't guard those inverted pick and rolls. Here's Alyssa Thomas barreling through my defenders again. We fixed the 18 inverted pick and rolls in game 2. Guess what? Satu's giving us inverted pick and rolls, and now it's I didn't study properly for this exam. Now it's exam day and my brain is completely fried and I'm like, oh shoot, do I just circle B for everything and hope I survive? At certain points it catches up and it caught up in a loud way, and it caught up in an unfortunate way, because even with all that game was still within reach. And it's like, guys, like y'all had it, but y'all just did not. So it's just like y'all just didn't do it like that. And then that's where the evolution comes in, where it's, we're not gonna have as many dips as we did this time. Like never again. Like we've got a bad team on the ropes. We're going to finish them out. We're closing this out. Bench players, y'all getting some extra minutes, because my big dogs, they sitting next to me, relaxing, having a nice cool water, and really resting up for the next game.
Yeah, how Izzy was used or lack thereof in that Phoenix series, I don't understand. 2 things that I want to talk about. This comment: JJ wasn't herself, wasn't her Finals MVP self this playoffs. And I said this before. I'm gonna read the whole thing. Honestly, JJ started the year on fire. I was like, not only is she looking like the Liberty MVP, but she was looking like an early candidate for MVP in the league. Period. But then post injury, she was never the same for the rest of the season. Ankle injury, she hurt that same ankle twice. Those are hard to come off of. We played the clip earlier from Sabrina talking about it took her 1.5 years after her ankle injury to get right.
Twice, and now with surgery.
Yeah, exactly. Bam. Amir, yes, we're talking about it now. Also, Amir, Cheryl Reeve said that Emma chose wrong. I don't know what Cheryl Miller said about it, if anything. But another thing that I wanted to come back to is Tiffy and Co saying, I find it interesting how Kolb says that those 3 want to be back, but he didn't explicitly state that he wants them all back. I would have to listen to the clip again. We could actually listen to it right now. What I believe I heard is Jonathan Kolb be asked about the core 3 and whether he knew they wanted to come back, and then him responding in the affirmative that he knows that they want to be back. That's what I think I heard. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that if he was asked that he would say that he wants them back or that he would say that he doesn't want them back. But I think he answered the question, and rather emphatically, I think, Brian, that he answered the question that he was asked.
Yeah. It felt like I want them all back. Because I feel like
that's what it felt like to me, too.
Yeah. And I feel like also if you in 2022 have those players on your vision board and they want to come back, you don't throw away the vision board when the vision has hit with the championship and the vision of getting another one is still within reach.
100%. Albert Jimenez saying, I want to see the big 3 get another chance to play together with Lainey Hamilton because they were affected by injuries. And I hope that Sonia Roman becomes the next head coach. We're going to talk about head coaches. I'm going to play the next 2 clips because we're running, quote unquote, behind. Y'all know we just go as long as we go. We don't care. We out here. We outside in the interwebs. Anyway, we're going to hear about Jonathan. We're going to hear from Jonathan Kolb talking about the style of basketball, the evolution, what that looks like, and then go into the comment about Sabrina's usage. Because once again, Sabrina getting demerits. I do think they're warranted to some extent, Brian, but they're not contextualized. Yet again, that's my opinion. Listen, do I stand for Sabrina? I would not say I stand for Sabrina, but I definitely want Sabrina to take the keys. I still think that is a thing that needs to happen. It hasn't happened, and there are a lot of different reasons why. And Lucas maybe gets Jonathan Kolb to answer some of why the Sabrina, I don't want to say experiment, but why the vision for Sabrina Ionescu has not yet been fully realized, even though this team has its first championship, but there's more in the book of Sabrina Ionescu. But here's what Jonathan Kolb had to say. We're going to hear first, though, about the style of basketball evolution there for the New York Liberty, but also the league. And then what Jonathan Kolb had to say about Sabrina Ionescu, her usage, and what is the right backcourt pairing.
You use the phrase ever-evolving WNBA. Just what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I think that the game is changing rapidly. I honestly don't even know it's the same league as in 2023. I think that we're seeing a basketball style on both sides of the ball that is rapidly changing. And I think that that will impact our decisions, not only that we made recently, but also roster as we look at our build and making sure that we are not standing still and we provide the right ingredients for whomever sits in that coaching seat to cook with. I think that you're seeing our three-point attempt rate, our free throw attempt rate dropping as respected to the league. You know, you look at our 5-person starting lineup, and you compare and contrast it to 2024, it's actually eerily similar when you look at offensive rating, defensive rating, and net rating. It was actually better net rating-wise and offensive rating-wise, but it dropped in ranking offensively, even though we scored more points per possession than just a year ago. And to me, that's indicative of a changing league. Yeah, that's not something I'm even comfortable going into. I think that for us, we feel really confident that we need to evolve. We need to be more innovative right now. We need to be more adaptable right now. Those are things that are really important for us. You know, it's a situation, part of my job is to make sure that we're somewhat bulletproof in the way that we prepare, the way that we adjust in game, and the way that we approach a season. You know, our goal is always to be peaking as the playoffs begin, and there needs to be a proper cadence to that preparation to get us into that position to ultimately be successful at the end. And that's what I'm talking about when I'm talking about process, right? It's not about the end, because so long as we go about what we're doing in a very intentional way throughout the season, health withstanding, some luck withstanding, I think that we'll be in position to do what we all are here to do.
Yeah.
Sabrina's season was really interesting. Even the last 3 years, right? It's like no matter what backcourt partner she plays with, it kind of says a lot about her usage. Sloot, Benijah, or Leo, whoever you want to say, and Tosh. And I was kind of wondering, why do you think that maybe she and the team didn't reap the benefits that she did playing next to Sloot in 2023? Like, I know shooting luck and injury luck, but when you look at, and not an indictment on Tosh, but the Sabrina-Tosh fit, like Sabrina ends the year shooting 29% from three. I'm just curious what you made of her season, her offensive usage particularly, and how that informs your decision about who to play around her, her usage going forward.
Yeah, it's an awesome question, Lucas. I think that it's something that we're always evaluating is what is the best backcourt partner for her. And really, how are we planning to use her moving forward? And that's something we have been and are currently discussing. In terms of the Tosh pairing, I don't know that we really solved the off-ball production opportunities with Tosh in ways that were conducive to creating success for Sabrina. I don't know that we got her a lot of clean looks this year from three that, she's one of the best shooters in the world with immense gravitational pull. And I just think that there's ways that we can continue to evolve there. In terms of the partner, I mean, that's something we're really looking at. I think there's consideration of, is it time? Is it time for Sab to be at the one? If so, what does that partner look like? And so these are all things that we've been considering and we'll continue to consider. And it also will be heavily influenced by whomever assumes the eventual head coaching role.
Listen.
There's a lot there. There's so much there.
Listen. Okay. Let's start with what was towards the back end of that clip. And there's something else still in this segment. So I don't even know what that is, but we'll play that in a little bit. Because I thought he was going to talk about innovation next. Anyway, Sab, is Sabrina a 1 or a 2 naturally versus is Sabrina a 1 or a 2 for the New York Liberty? Feel like we've been having this conversation, Brian, since you and I started regularly talking on the pod with Misha. Shout out to Misha, who's got some exciting news coming. No longer with Good Game with Sarah Spain. Maybe hit up that Obama in her phone. I don't know.
She tried to tell me she wasn't big time.
Big time.
I tell you
big
what.
Time. We're over here like, I remember you when. Anyway, I mean, that's a question I've been trying to answer since we drafted Sabrina. Mm-hmm. And I've said this before. I do not think we found the perfect pairing for Sabrina Ionescu. I think Tosh, I liked the concepts of the plan around Tosh. I think there were some things kind of for the team that didn't work. I think I was also expecting Tosh to be at what we've seen as far as her offensive peaks a little bit more consistently than what we saw in New York. But I mean, Brian, that was my takeaway. Sab at the 1 or the 2. What was your biggest takeaway from that snippet that we just played?
Yeah, I think the idea of Sab's usage on offense fascinates me so much because now that I think about it, the best partner for her in a sense might just be the combo of Benijah and Leo. And I think within that is you have the shooting where you can't sort of like provide gap help off of a shooter because Leo is a good 3-point shooter. B can really post up and take advantage in those ways. And I think for Sabrina, it's okay. We want you to have a little bit more decision-making power in your hands as compared to sort of being as someone who can sort of like space out and provide shooting help in that regard. Because I think for Sab, A lot of it, I feel like I really have to dedicate myself to a project of watching all of her 3-point attempts, but so many of them came, I thought, early in the shot clock, or just those sort of back baking 3 attempts where it's like you want to get the crowd on tilt and it doesn't go, and it's like, oh, I got where you're going, but if it doesn't work, it looks bad. I feel like she had a good amount of those this year, and I think for Sabrina and the Liberty, it's how am I going to get the most out of her? Because 29% shouldn't happen. Like we can sort of like discuss the shots generated as far as the coaching and all that kind of thing, but 29% can't happen. Like I've seen you knock down threes from like the parking lot, and you're below league average on high volume. Like that right there kills an offense. And I think for the next coaching staff that comes in, the question is going to be, how am I to leverage the space that she generates? And I think also it ties back to the first half of what he said as far as the shots you want to get, because the best shots you want to get are shots at the rim, open threes, and free throws. Sabrina she's gotten, to her eternal credit, has gotten stronger every year, has gotten better at the rim every year. Like that part is essential. And drawing free throws, the referee's a terrible thing, which we can get to eventually because everyone in the league hates referees except for Kathy, but that's not the convo. And open threes. Can you trade in those heavily contested threes that come late in the shot, that come late in the shot clock, or those deep pulls from 34 feet when you really don't need to pull it, when you don't really need to pull it? And can you trade those in for more drives to the rim where you sort of draw contact, or just sort of like moving the offense along a little bit differently? I think that's the sort of like exit interview piece where Kobe and his staff are talking to Sabrina, where it's like, okay, in the offseason, I want you to work more on decision making in that regard, not just decision making in terms of making assists, but this decision making in, okay, it's 18 in the shot clock. I have a sliver space from 3. Do I pull it, or do I look for something even better? I feel like that's the next step for her. And I think that even independent of questions we may have of Natasha Cloud and her 3-point shooting versus her driving more, I feel like that's the thing that Sabrina can control a little bit more. And that's the thing that I think when the WNBA returns, that's going to be the thing we really have to sort of like keep a really close eye on, to make sure that the offense is getting quality looks every possession, and not just some heave from like 28 because you're open for like half of a second and it's like, oh, I'm a 3-point shooter, it's going up. Like that's the tricky part that she and the team are going to have to sort of navigate going forward.
I would agree with that. The only thing I want to add, well, 2 things. One, I agree with Albert here. She started off with fire. Things went downhill after the neck and toe injury. I do think the injuries also had an impact on Sabrina, but holistically, what I will say is Sabrina is starting to feel, to me, like the problem that the New York Liberty had when they couldn't find the right roster to complement Tina Charles. And I hope it doesn't get that far, because Tina Charles is ruined. Her reputation, her legacy is ruined for a lot of New York Liberty fans, in my opinion, because the New York Liberty could not build a roster around her. And what do I mean by that? What you also heard in that clip is Jonathan Kolb talking about, we can't be standing still. Being a 5-out team is not the same as everyone going out to the perimeter and then not moving for the remainder of the shot clock. And for me, there were too many times where the New York Liberty got comfortable just kind of waiting around as if, Moses was going to part the Red Sea and a seam to the basket was going to be open. And what happens when that happens is that you do have shooters, a lot of times Sabrina, rushing late in the shot clock. Does that impact her decision making early in the shot clock? If she has space within what is reasonably her range in her career, maybe not necessarily at that point in the game or even in that game overall, do you take that shot because you won't be more wide open for the rest of the possession? I don't know. I could see a world in which that could be a part of what's happening, and I don't want that to happen for Sabrina the way it did for Tina.
Yeah.
Because the New York Liberty have a problem at times, and we've seen this with Jonquel Jones. It's almost the opposite, right? How many times have we gotten on the microphone screaming, get Jonquel Jones the ball in the paint? If you know you get a double, if you know that you win almost every time Jonquel Jones gets a double-double, why don't you feed Jonquel Jones to get her a double-double as soon as possible in the game?
Yeah. Like that you mentioned, that's the sort of story of 2023 for the Liberty, in that when it came down to game 4, JJ was hot in the first half and just didn't do anything after halftime. It's because they didn't get her the ball. And this year, I think JJ's injuries really sort of like compounded everything. And then game 3 was when everything sort of like went to heck for her. So I want to she still deserves like heat for how game 3 ended. But now I'm like, okay, I understand more why it didn't hit for you the way it did. But even within that, Lucas clipped something for me a while back. Like he had it on his timeline where there were possessions where the Liberty generated mismatches. Like there was one game against Minnesota when they were able to generate Bridget Carlton being switched onto Jonquel Jones, and they don't get her the ball, and JJ does not go in the post and like duck in to go to sort of like get the ball in the paint. And I feel like I think there is criticism of the coaches have not emphasizing getting JJ the ball in that regard, but also in a read and react offense, like you guys have to see it there. Like,
100%.
Yeah, you guys got to see it, and you as the player who has the mismatch, get in there, force the issue.
100%. And I'm glad you made that distinction, because for me, to some extent, yes, you want the coaches to do that, but I don't get the sense Sandy Brondello is not an idiot. She knows that as well as I do. Mm-hmm. That is decisions that are made on the court. You know who's not on the court and running plays on the court with the ball in her hand? Sandy Brondello. So yeah, I think again, like Winsome said, these questions definitely need answers. I liked this comment: with all the very good 3-point shooters on the Liberty, you need a point guard or a player, period, that breaks down defenses to create wide open 3-point shots. Ahots. I love that. No, I know what you meant. I actually read it as shots, and then I was like, wait a minute. One of these things is not like the other. But I what I will say is, who did that best in the playoffs, in the regular season, even though she only had one good working knee? Breanna Stewart. And so the comment that we saw earlier, let me see if I can find it real quick, about you need like a point forward like AT. Yeah. Someone that's going to bulldoze through. How many times did I scream about that? I was like, please draw blood. At this point, just draw blood so that I know that you can actually do it, that I know you can play physical. But this has to be a more physical team, and they're just not there right now. Okay, let's play these last few Kolb clips, and then we can get out of here. We got a lot of things. This is just the first episode of the off season. But it is New York Liberty Day in New York City, so we wanted to hop on. Go ahead.
Also, if the league is shut down, you know who's not shut down? Us.
That's it. We'll be here.
We're here. Right. Kathy may be gone and maybe off on vacation somewhere, but we are on these corners talking basketball.
But anyway. We'll get into that. But let's hear more from Jonathan Kolb.
Obviously, you bring in as an assistant to come to the W. Does the next coach of the New York Liberty need to have WNBA experience in some form or fashion?
You say WNBA?
Yeah. Do they need to have had WNBA experience?
Yeah, I don't think we want to limit our scope on a candidate. I don't. I think that we want to have a really diverse pool of candidates to speak with. I also think these are opportunities for organizations to learn about ourselves from candidates. So we're excited about the opportunity.
Pause for the cause. I thought it was interesting how Ben phrased that. Is it important that the next New York Liberty, Is it important that the next New York Liberty head coach have WNBA experience? And Jonathan was like, WNBA? He was like, yes, WNBA experience. My man did not answer that question at all. I don't think he answered the question. The question was, how important is it that your next head coach have WNBA experience? And he basically said, we're casting a wide net. It's an opportunity for us to learn about ourselves within the process. Though, and maybe I'm wrong, but what I heard is I'm not answering that question.
So, Erica, this is a moment where I'd like for you to help walk me through a blind spot of mine. So, I hear that, right? And I guess my thinking has always been basketball is basketball. If you're good at basketball, basketball applies anywhere because it's basketball. And I think my brain is always, because I think throughout the process, a lot of the discussion has been, oh, we need to have NBA experience. Because I guess like that's where these sort of like innovations or whatever is happening. So I'm always like, no, okay, if someone is in that space and they come over here, it's fine. And I guess it's a good thing because it shows that this league is a place that you want to be. And I use Nate as an example because in 23 going to 24, he was like, girl dad, what's his deal? And now it's like, oh, hey, Nate is really.
He basically said no. I heard Alpage and I heard the same thing, but I'm sorry. Continue, Brian.
Yeah. So I guess like my blind spot is that I don't so much think of, like, I get having W experience and it's meaningful because you're around these players in particular, and that experience does matter to a certain degree. Because I think for someone like a Christy Tolliver, she's beloved by players, competed against this era of players, and has coached in various contexts and places in different leagues. So that's a benefit. But I don't think, like, I guess my brain is okay. It's almost like it's almost like a offshoot of a I don't see color kind of thing, where it's like, I guess my brain is, oh, basketball is basketball. And if you're good and if your ideas are good, if you don't have W experience, or if you didn't play in the W, in the case of a Becky or Christy Tolliver or Stephanie White, Sandy, whoever, that doesn't really sort of like demerit you in my book. But I feel like that might be a moment where my blind spot of just sort of like starting with being around the men first and then gradually coming into the WNBA space as a reporter and a fan, I feel like maybe that's where I'm like, maybe my thought process is a little bit incomplete and not really sort of considering and properly weighing the importance of having a coach who has WNBA experience, even if they may have coached elsewhere, but having at least some presence in the W. But
okay, let me start here, Brian.
Yeah.
I really appreciate you sharing that. And I honor and respect it. And I think that there is an earnest and what's the word I want to use? There's an earnestness and a purity and a true curiosity in how you phrase that, and in knowing you and in getting to work with you, and I take that at face value, and I believe that you're asking the question because you truly do want to learn and understand, and like you said, help me see maybe the blind spot. So I just want to say that, because it is very likely that my blood pressure is going to rise as I work through how to respond to what you said. And I just want to make it clear that it's not a you thing, and that the fact that you can identify that you have a blind spot is great work that you do. And the fact that you said what you said is also indicative of a system where there are a lot of people that are like you, whether that is that they're men folk or that they're NBA folk who then come to the women's game. There are people who think like you who will not ask the question that you just asked. So I'm serious. I mean, I was joking about my blood pressure, but also not really, because it's probably going to rise in like 38 seconds here. But I want to just honor truly, and I mean this. I'm so grateful that you come with that perspective and that you've opened up the conversation in that way. I mean that truly. My response is, I'm going to take you, let's walk through this, Brian. Who in your eyes is the most accomplished WNBA player who also has coaching experience to ever come through the women's pro game in the United States? Just any name that comes to your mind.
Probably like the first that jumps to mind is Becky, I would say, as far as like coaching.
How many times has Becky, like, if you had to put a number on it, is it, would you say?
Erica, run that back because it was a little bit of a lot, so I missed.
Okay, so you said Becky Hammon. I think that's a good choice. I think maybe some people would say Teresa Weatherspoon, Candace Parker as a player, but she doesn't have coaching experience yet, right? So I think we can say Becky Hammon and Teresa Weatherspoon probably have the most crossover appeal also when it comes to basketball that also have coaching experience. The question that I had asked you is how many, if you had to guess, how many, I'll give you A, B, C, D. How many head coaching jobs in the NBA, in the NBA, has Becky Hammon? Oh, I'm sorry. I do not want to put any disrespect. Dawn Staley is up there as well. Okay. They have unfuckwithable. Listen, I'm getting real here. Their resume, you can't fuck with it. It stands on its own at every level that they've ever coached or played. Right? Mm-hmm. Dawn Staley, Becky Hammon, Teresa Weatherspoon. How many? You know what? I'm going to make it even simpler. Let's think about Becky Hammon, Teresa Weatherspoon, and Dawn Staley cumulatively. How many MNBA jobs do you think each of them has been interviewed for cumulatively? Would you say it's 0 to 5, 5 to 10, 10 to 15, or 15 or more? All three of them combined.
Because I know Dawn was talking about the next job she interviewed for, which I'm going to write about. So that's one right there. Bex had a bunch. I'd say probably cumulatively maybe in like a 10 to 15 range, if I had to guess.
I would say so too.
Yeah.
Probably. That might be a conservative number, just based on interviews, because Dawn Staley has also talked about the Knicks coaching job and some other jobs. And that's not talking about Lindsey Harding. That's not talking about Kara Lawson. That's not talking about other we're just talking about the top three that have the most crossover appeal. So you mean it's definitely not 0 to 5, baby.
No, way more. No.
Cumulatively,
it's
right. This is Hammon alone, and probably still more on the conservative side.
Yeah.
So 10 to 15 times, any one of those women has interviewed for a head coaching job. How many women head coaches have we seen in the MNBA?
Head coaches, big ole.
And who came the closest? Becky Hammon in Summer League.
Yep, that is.
And so you have Dawn Staley, Becky Hammon, Teresa Weatherspoon, Lindsey Harding, Kara Lawson, Christy Tolliver. Now you can add Jenny Busek, who has already been head coach in the WNBA, now has been an assistant under Rick Carlisle in both Dallas and with Indiana. Mm-hmm. If basketball is basketball, how come the most accomplished basketball players and coaches from the women's side cannot find coaching roles in the MNBA, but the most basic, I did this for a year level assistants can find head coaching jobs and the highest paid head coaching jobs in women's basketball? Why does that happen? I know you know the answer.
Yep.
I know you know the answer.
Yep.
I know you know the answer.
Yep. It's the basketball man. Come on down. It's how did what is this man's name?
Who was the Dallas coach? How did he become the next hire after Teaspoon was let go after one season? He had a worse record than her. And then also Tyler Marsh has a worse record in the same organization than Teaspoon did. And as far as we know, that man still has a job.
Yeah. Tyler has a job and Spoon is MIA in the coaching search.
So respectfully to the thought process that you entered into the conversation, which again, I am very grateful for, what the fuck are the collective we talking about? What are we talking about? And this is why I said what I said earlier on this show. There is a move, and it is clear as day, at the business level, at the GM level, at the coaching level, at the marketing level, for now the WNBA, which, you know, is the bane and the blemish of NBA enterprises, losing millions and millions and millions of dollars for big bad boy NBA for decades. All of a sudden, now we're not the bleeding cow of NBA enterprises. And now NBA enterprises is starting to put in all the resources that they didn't for 30 years. And that is coming at the cost and the expense of women who know ball. You can say a lot of things, and we have on this podcast, arguing for and against Sandy Brondello. But the undercurrent of what we're seeing and have seen in the past 2 seasons is that, and that's why I'm a little bit pissed off that Jonathan Kolb didn't answer that question outright, even though he literally did. By saying what he said all I needed to hear. WNBA experience, winning in the WNBA as someone who's transitioned into a coach doesn't mean enough to the people in decision-making roles as it does to say that you can legitimize your coaching staff because one of your coaches has NBA experience. Oh, but wait, then why doesn't Christy Tolliver have a head coaching job? Why doesn't Teresa Weatherspoon have a head coaching job? Why doesn't Sonia have a head coaching job yet? Because even when you have NBA experience and more rings than any buku yoga bun coach will ever have at any level, Teresa Weatherspoon at the end of the day, Christy Tolliver at the end of the day, Rebecca Brunson at the end of the day, and any of the other coaches that we can mention, you know what's wrong with them is that they're not men. And men's limited experience in men's basketball means more than women's experience in men's basketball or women's robust experience in women's basketball. Why is that the case? When women are who these coaches will be coaching. And you would think that having experience in women's basketball should maybe at least be a consideration when you're hiring a women's basketball coach. I don't know, but maybe I'm crazy.
No, I don't think so. Like, I think, yeah, I guess to that point, like, definitely, I feel like for a lot of jobs and leadership roles, like, lived experience matters so much. And I think especially for players like a Tolliver who are in the interview cycle, a Sonia, if she gets hired here or Seattle or wherever, like, lived experience matters a lot. And you want to have people who know the space well, as compared to even an outsider who's just sort of coming into the space. Like, the space is hot, which is
Right.
great.
And let me tell you why that makes sense. What did we just hear Jonathan Kolb say? I would have loved to do a hardship, but I was limited in this way. If you have someone who's used to having more bench roles, taxi squads since the pandemic, and a G League, do you think that they're going to be able to run a WNBA team as a general manager or a head coach when they don't have those resources? No. But, you know, their anatomy is right. So that seems to be what's high on the list. That's how it feels a lot of the time. And it's enraging. It's enraging. Kara Lawson could absolutely be on an NBA bench, benching staff, or excuse me, coaching staff. Cheryl Reeve, if she wanted to be, could be, and could lead an NBA team. We know Becky Hammon could. She's already done it in Summer League. You have some coaches coming in to be WNBA head coaches, first-time head coaches that have not even been head coaches in Summer League in the NBA or in G League on the NBA side. And all of a sudden, because of how we as a collective society rank women's sports, basketball geniuses, right? That are fresh, like the doctor just, smacked them in the rear. As I like to say, starter coaches. We're okay with giving starter coaches the keys to a franchise that just took Paige Becker's #1 overall, to the point where you have these 22-year-olds coached by some of the best coaches, period, in basketball. So you can argue with your mama if you don't like what I said about the women, but then come at me and say something about Gino Auriemma, who coaches on the women's side, who is the winningest coach in NCAA history, not women's history. All okay? The next coach after him is Wooden. And you mean to tell me that if we're looking at Paige Becker's fighting for her life, not to show a what the fuck look on her face because what her coach is telling her makes no sense, makes no basketball sense. But we had to endure that. When would the NBA ever? When would the NBA ever? And so I think it's quite honestly bullshit that Jonathan Kolb didn't answer that question. And if your answer as a WNBA general manager is that either I don't see experience, right? Or you don't if you don't think WNBA experience is important to be a WNBA head coach, get bent. Where do they do that at? Because the whole argument against women not coaching in the NBA is what, Brian?
NBA experience.
As in they don't have enough.
Mm-hmm.
But then what's your excuse in why Becky doesn't have a job? What's your excuse in why Teaspoon doesn't have a job? What's your excuse in why Lindsey Harding, Christy Tolliver, Carol Lawson, Jenny Busek don't have head coaching jobs? What's your excuse? Let alone come to the W. What's your excuse? Oh, okay. Oh, okay. But then I'm the angry Black Latina who always wants to make it about gender. I'm talking facts. These are all facts. You want to say, oh, well, they don't have this experience. Oh, well, they don't have that. Okay, then what about the ones that do? Where their check at? How Nate Tibbetts has 2 years of WNBA experience and is getting paid more than Becky Hammon, then Cheryl Reeve, then Sandy Brondello. Where do they do that at? So, I mean, I don't know. Anyway, I'm sweating through my dang hoodie now. I knew my blood pressure was going to go up. It's a great question. I'm glad you asked it. And this is the conversation that I want to have. Because some of this doesn't make any sense. And I promise you, I've been saying it for a while, but make sure y'all know you heard it here. The trend of NBA business infiltrating the WNBA just keep an eye on it. I was about to make a poli-sci reference to the political climate now. I don't think it's a stretch, but I know not everyone's ready for that. It's just real interesting. It's real interesting. Follow the money and see where it goes. NBA decision makers are getting more invested in the WNBA in ways that we've never seen before. And that's why the players, they've said their piece about Kathy Engelbert, but don't think that means that Sis is going to be gone anytime soon if Adam Silver doesn't want her gone, or if the owners don't want her gone. Because what does she do? She is the mid-level management that keeps the status quo from the NBA gaze, G-A-Z-E. That's her job. That's her job. And the players are tired of it because they see through it now and have for a while, but they're just not staying quiet on it. It's a really interesting time. When will we get to season 30? I don't know, because it doesn't feel inevitable that a deal will be made with this collective bargaining agreement. And I hope to the good high basketball heavens that the Players Association is taking a look at everything that I just outlined, because at every level of the game and at every level of the business, the NBA is now starting to do what they swore up and down, in and out, left and right, side to side, that they couldn't ever do before, which is to invest in their own platform. The NBA Enterprises, NBAE, they are the overseers of the WNBA. Ron is the main PR person for the WNBA. What does his email address end with? At where?
Ain't no W in that one. At NBA.com.
Okay, what about Sam Tager? At where?
At NBA.com.
Mario at?
NBA.com.
Oh. Okay. But what do I know? I'm just someone who gets mad on the internet. Damien, I saw your question. The WNBA definitely needs to be fixed. The Liberty should give Teaspoon, Tolliver, and maybe Harding, Lawson a shot, or Hammond, but I digress. Hammond, I would love to have Becky Hammond back in New York. I would love to see it one day, and maybe it will. I'm gonna tell you right now, as much as I love me some Becky Hammond, I'm gonna need a few more years to be okay with her coming back to New York. She reeks Vegas to me right now. I just need a little time. But I would love to see it. Teaspoon absolutely should get a call. That being said, because of all of this evolution talk that we heard from Jonathan Kolb, my gut is that to be even more bulletproof, and unfortunately, it's not like it's going to make a difference, but also just practically, I'd like to see Spoon maybe even work under a Hammond or a Cheryl Reeve. Reeves got her squad pretty good. Becky Hammond, I don't know that she's really looking for anyone else, but even if she just kind of comes in and is observing, I want Teaspoon to just get a little bit more of a handle of the lay of the land, because as we're talking right now, it is actively changing. And I feel like I'm conflicted in saying that out loud, because I don't want to think that it's true, but I do think it's true, unfortunately, for Teaspoon. Christy Tolliver is in that next generation. And again, how long can the menfolk in charge continue to make excuses as to why a player like Teresa Weatherspoon or a coach with her experience like Teresa Weatherspoon isn't qualified? How many more excuses? And the Tollivers, the Lindsay Hardings of the world, the Carol Lawsons of the world, they are becoming the most bulletproof versions of what has already existed in women's basketball. And so if they ever, and here's another thing, the WNBA, aka NBA Enterprises, has fumbled the bag so hard that why would some of these players want to bring their talent back? Why would they want to? Because they've been messed around for forever. Listen, robust experience in the W, okay, robust. They are not giving qualified women the opportunity, period. They're just not. They're not. The WNBA, Damien, absolutely has to be fixed. The best coaches this season, Natalie, for sure, has NBA and WNBA experience. Cheryl, all women's basketball, Becky, WNBA and NBA, and Stephanie White, WNBA all the way. You're absolutely right. Those are the top coaches. I think Natalie Nakase, she's not far off, but I still want to see another season. And right under that, I think is, Nate Tibbetts had his limitations, but I think he understands where the game is evolving. And again, that's the part of what Jonathan is saying. I understand and I respect. And to me, it was a hard realization, but I understand in certain pockets why you move on from Sandy Brondello because of the Nate Tibbetts of the world. And I know I kind of lashed out at him more so because, again, a woman with his same experience doesn't get the job and doesn't get paid as much as he does. If the roles were reversed, and that's what makes me mad. But yeah, we'll see what happens. Albert saying, I will also need a few years to welcome Becky back after her commentary during. Listen, Becky went in, and like I said, I love it for her. But yeah, I need more. R. Varnell, listen, I've been saying this and preparing myself. If the Liberty hire a male starter coach, I am done. The Liberty are already raising season ticket holder prices in like unimaginable numbers. They are separating themselves in ways that could have a teeter effect and a negative effect. I get it, raising prices, supply, demand, all that, capitalism, blah, 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 blah. But some of the things they've been doing, if y'all don't win, they're going to be in a world of hurt. And so let's end on this because, yes, my blood pressure, Amir, is, and I told y'all, I was like, I'm about to go in. Just know that I love, respect, and appreciate everyone, and I'm about to go in. This is the question I want to end on for this episode, Brian. Do you think that the championship window for the New York Liberty is still open, or is it very contingent on the next coach?
I think it's hard, yes, independent of coach, because I feel like for whatever criticisms folks may have had of Sandy and her coaching style this year, when everyone was here and firing on all cylinders, that was still a top 2 or 3 team in the league. Independent of everything else that came of it. Sure, it wasn't the highs of 2024, but the high is still there. And if you dial into certain matchups and certain lineups, you can get to that point. Because I feel like there were so many moments where we saw them and it's like, okay, this is the vision. This is what everyone's doing. Everyone is on their P's and Q's. It didn't happen enough in the bigger picture. And that's where you need to sort of like fine tune some things across the board. But I think as far as being a championship contender, as long as Brianna Stewart is breathing air, her team is a championship contender, I could be in the court next to her and it's like, oh yeah, I think Stewie's gonna make it to the championship round again because that's Brianna Stewart. And I think that is still present. And I feel like going into, because I think even across the W landscape, I imagine it's going to be a lot of turnover in free agency and with the expansion drafts and things like that. So it's going to be challenging, but I think as long as the core of Brianna Stewart, Sabrina Ionescu, John Cole Jones, I'll put Leonie Fibich in that core because I think she's that vital. I think she's that vital to what they want to do here. I think that as your starting core 4, if you will, is solid enough, and now you hope for good health in the event of Benaja Lenny Hamilton if she returns, Niara Sabali if she's not scooped up in the expansion drafts, whenever the heck that's going to be. So I think as long as the core 4 are there, and I think ultimately we'll get to it whenever the expansion draft is, but I think the starting 5 plus B are going to be the protected ones, and then we sort of figure out what Toronto and Portland think of as far as roster building and all that kind of jazz. But I think that starting that building block right there is set and is really good. And we've seen lineup combinations with those 6 have really high highs in a hyper competitive WNBA. So I think that's a good starting point. And then with more salary cap room coming this winter, and theoretically, let's say for example, the salary cap is what, like $12 million? Like, I don't have a hard number, so don't hold me to that, but a number that's a lot bigger than 1 million for 12 people. So if
No,
you're
the
able to
WNBA salary cap is like
1.5, I think.
yeah, I was like per team is definitely 1.5.
Yeah. So like a cap that's what, like at least double in the double digits, like 20 million, whatever number. Like, this is where having an organization with deep pockets and a known and a proven willingness to spend money comes into play. Because now, if you're a free agent, it's okay. I see what New York is doing over there. Championship team, runner up 1 year, really hot atmosphere, really happening place to be. Like, I'm there as an opponent. That building gets turned up. That's a great spot to be in. Now it's okay, I can make this work. And now you combine that with the 6 protected players or whatever number of players are protected. We don't even know what the stupid eligibility is going to be for this thing.
Yeah,
but
there's so many questions that need answers. This is interesting. Sonia, the only female candidate for the Liberty job is Sonia. I hope that's not true.
No, it's not, because Tolliver is due to interview. Sonia, I believe, has interviewed, but Tolliver is on the board.
Good, as she should be. And I honestly don't know if I think Sonia is the right choice.
Can I stay on that for a second?
Yeah.
Like, I was a lot of the 5-out stuff this year was Sonia being the offensive coordinator, so to speak. So I feel like a lot of the critiques for Sandy as far as like shot quality, what things are running, a lot of that almost works as almost like a secondary critique of Sonia in some respects, because it was Sonia who was implementing the offensive training camp, and that was really sort of like the vision they had as far as like building on what they did in 24. Having Sonia was supposed to sort of like lift it up even more, and it didn't hit the highs that I think all of us expected. Some of that I think is the context we've been talking about. But then also it's do I want to have JJ start out more in the perimeter versus sort of like really being more based in the post? I think JJ is sensational, so I want her all over the court and doing as many things as possible. So my brain is, my do everything all world center is adding more to her game. That's great. But the results didn't really hit in the way that they wanted to. So is that what we're installing and the player is not doing enough read and react? Is that enough? Or is it, okay, now that we have year 2 with this, because first year of anything is really hard. Like, first year, any environment, very rarely is it we just getting in and it's like that. It takes time. So year 2, healthy all across the board, everyone's back now. We're gonna implement it even more. I wonder if that is a point of favor in Sonia's contention as far as the decision makers go, where it's okay, like we see what it looks like when everything is going really well. Now we do some roster tweaks, get you a little bit more sort of like players like that sort of fit the vision a little bit. Now we can really sort of like get the shots that we want, and sort of like tie back to Kobe's point earlier about their 3-point rate and their free throw rate not being as high as he would want it to be, and where this is the evolution piece where the game of basketball is going.
Yep.
Now it's a situation where it's like, those didn't hit to where we wanted to. Because I remember specifically, I could not find the audio of it, and I swear to God, he said it. He was like, "We really want to get more shots at the rim this season." I so remember him saying that at media day in May when we were there at the Crown Club with him. I swear to God, I remember him saying, but I just cannot find it online. But I vividly remember him saying, we want to get more shots at the rim this year. That's the goal. That's the thing we have as a specific benchmark, and they didn't hit it. Is that now for Sonia, how can you get more of those shots with the talent that you have? Because there's a lot of excellent talent on this team. And how can you make the absolute most of it while being able to generate clean looks for Sabrina from deep, getting Leo, seeing if we can sort of like get Leo to tap into more of a creation button than she did in 2025. Now that she's not going from America to Europe and back and forth this time around as she did this year, how can we? What are these buttons that you, Sonia, now that they know you and they like working with you? Because I think to a player that they all talk positively about their time with Sonia. So she has buy-in in the room for the roster that's here currently. Now that you're going to be in the big chair, what buttons can you and the staff you select press to make this offense what the WNBA is shaping out to be going forward in the 2020s and beyond, and still keeping up and staying ahead of the competition?
Yeah, and that's why what Albert is saying here is really interesting. I'm about to have to sneeze soon, so apologies in advance. I also like what Tammy is saying. Surprised Rebecca Brunson isn't getting more buzz and attention. I don't know if she has NBA coaching experience. She's definitely done stuff on the media side in Minnesota.
Yeah.
I also wanted to come back to another one of Tammy's points. Do we even know No, we don't know. We have no idea. And we probably won't until the CBA is done, but we won't. Christy Tolliver or bust for me. That will heal some wounds when it comes to Christy Tolliver coming back and hitting those corner threes to eliminate the New York Liberty in the year where they decided it would be really cute to not do conferences and the Liberty had the best record in the Eastern Conference. We're like, oh, top 8 make the playoffs, blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that would be great. That would be healing. I remember that. Clearly, I remember it. Also, I wanted to come back to this comment from Z Diddy. Listen, you guys have the best Liberty content on YouTube. I appreciate y'all. Keep up the great work.
Oh, thank you.
No, we really appreciate this. I mean, we do this right now as a hobby, still trying to grow Black Rosie Media, but we are supremely confident. I am supremely confident in every voice that you've ever heard on this show. I don't bring just anyone on here because of their followers or because of whatever the case is. I bring people on here who know basketball, who know New York basketball, and will honestly challenge me at times. If y'all listen to the show, me especially, I don't have a problem disagreeing with anybody, okay? And that's what makes it good, because when you have people that you respect and you don't always agree, it makes for good content. So that's what we're trying to do here. So thank y'all. We really do appreciate y'all coming through. So I think that I just want to close it in hearing a little more from Jonathan, because we have just a little bit more of the clips that I pulled. And then big question is, can the Liberty still be a contender? I'm going to give you my answer to close out the episode.
Look, I think that our problems this year, not taking health into consideration, but they've been the same problems. I think that the scouting report on us is probably to be incredibly physical with us. It's probably to push us out on the perimeter, and it's probably to be really, really physical. And I feel like our spacing has been a point of it's been an issue for us. I think that we tend to stagnate as the clock winds down and the pressure mounts, and we go east-west a tremendous amount. Some of that could be personnel based. We have to really look at that. But in terms of being innovative, I think that our spacing principles are things that we want to really lean into. We took huge steps back defensively this year as a collective, especially on the glass. We plummeted. We have to find out why. Is that personnel based or not? So I think we want to get back to being who we have been, but also solving the problems that we still found success through. Does that make sense? In terms of a dream roster, man, I mean, it's interesting, right? We have a massive opportunity in front of us. So do a lot of teams with the amount of free agents that are going to be on the board. And also our cap sheet is relatively clean. So this is honestly, a probably once-in-a-lifetime opportunity for many franchises. And I also feel that I don't know what the contract lengths will be, but I'm just, 3 to 4 years, the WNBA future is going to be decided in a matter of weeks, meaning like when ultimately free agency kicks off. So the answers to those questions will be, forthcoming in the wintertime.
Woo! Okay, hold on. I keep pressing the wrong buttons. Listen. my man is saying a lot here,
Mhm.
including what I've been saying. We need to be a harder team, more physical, have to absorb physicality better. And you also heard him say, like, what happens in the few weeks of free agency is going to set franchises, including the New York Liberty, up for years to come.
It's going to be a big sport.
And a lot of that has to do with the CBA. All right.
Game 3, you ended it by saying you learned where the league is and where it's going, which obviously has been a theme today. How much of that innovation and looking forward, especially when it comes to the coaching change, was a consideration from last season within the championship season when you were thinking forward?
Good question. So it was very much under consideration last season. And I think as evidenced by that is we won the championship, but it's not about the end result. That moment will always mean the world to me, and I know many people in this city and our fan base, but it was about how we went about it. So we started to see the league change last season as well. But we felt coming into this year that we really wanted to lean into continuity. Continuity can be a catalyst at times, and we felt that would be important. But coming out of this season and really seeing an influx of change on many teams, it made the decision timeline tangible and one that we can be actionable on.
Awesome. Thanks, Jonathan, and thank you, everyone.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody. Appreciate it.
So there you go. At least, if not the major part of letting go of Sandy Brondello, is seeing what's coming down the pike. And I think that this, that was very illuminating for me. I will say that I disagree with you, though, Brian. I don't think that the New York Liberty championship window is guaranteed, especially when you get rid of a head coach, because we have seen so many head coaches just in the last 2 seasons not work out. Noel Quinn, Stephanie White changed jobs. Christy Sides is gone. Cole Clanis is gone. Tyler Marsh booted Teaspoon. Tremmel doesn't have a job. Right. There are so many changes that have been happening, and teams are not afraid maybe to course correct. I don't know if that's why some of these one and dones have been gone. In my opinion, I don't know. That's a whole nother thing. This next, as much as free agency and the collective bargaining agreement is imperative, I think another thing, especially if there are some things that are left on the negotiating table when we do get the new CBA, players are likely going to want as much autonomy as possible. And if that's not given through the CBA, the way they can do that is by doing 1 year or short-term contracts.
Mm-hmm.
And what that means to me, and we've seen this in the in the MNBA, right? What happens when you don't want to play for a team because of the coaching staff? You find a way out.
Yep. Sham Sharania, hope your phone is on, buddy.
The Liberty will have no trouble attracting the best free agents. In theory, no. But if they make the wrong coaching choice, they will. Because again, the championship window, clearly we can't say it's guaranteed. This is from last year. We didn't even get to the semis this season. So you can't tell me that their championship window is guaranteed when we literally didn't get to the chip. We didn't even get a chance to play for a championship in 2025. And the coaching staff, particularly the head coach, and listen, Jonathan Cole might not want to answer that question, but I think it would be interesting to hear WNBA players answer the question on how much they think WNBA experience matters when they're looking to partner up and match with a head coach. What would WNBA players say? And if what WNBA players say is different than what WNBA GMs and owners are saying, then we have a problem. And my gut My intuition is telling me that the answers probably would not be the same. And so you cannot mess this up. The New York Liberty have to get the best available coach for the New York Liberty, and it has to be one of the best 3 coaches available on the market. I really don't see any way. I don't see it going. I don't see it going well for the New York Liberty if they flub this up and have to hire a coach even within the next 3 years. And so a brand new head coach is not really something I want to see in New York. Is really not. I don't know why. I don't know why you let go of your winningest coach, a coach with the most WNBA experience, to get someone brand new and then sit here and tell me you're still in a championship window. I don't know. But we saw what Phoenix did. They messed up their hire after Sandy Brondello. They messed it up bad.
Black History Month is every day.
So for me, the championship window is contingent, maybe more so than on the coach, because in my estimation, the coach will impact the roster given that everyone's a free agent. That's just my gut. And I want to come back to this. How do you fix the Liberty and the WNBA going forward? You get a coach that has a clear vision for Sabrina Ionescu and John Quell Jones. Stewie's going to be Stewie. Water is wet. Stewie is Stewie. You know what I'm saying? Stewie will adapt and evolve. And that's the beauty of Breanna Stewart. Anyone who thinks she's too old or is past her prime can kick rocks, because she is a Swiss Army knife. She is the true phrase. And not even really, you know how they say, what is it? Jack of all trades, master of none. But the phrase actually goes, but it's better to be a master of many than a master of none. Stewie is the best of versatility and positionless basketball, period. Who's better? I don't know a one. As far as how I would fix the WNBA, once again, y'all be ready. I'm going to agree with something Damien said earlier. I don't know if we put it on the screen or not. I've been saying for years, Damien, also, the rosters need to expand from 12 to at least 15. I would do that if you make me GM for a day. And we might have to do this, Brian, on an episode in the offseason. We're both going to play GM for a day, and we come with our, wouldn't that be cool? We'll do it sometime when hockey season's not as crazy for me. But I want us to do, you come in as your GM platform, I come in with my GM platform, and then we do it live and let the chat decide who gets the job.
I like it.
We might have to have a special guest or two on for that one, but we should definitely do that. The Liberty have to get this right. I just don't know that because of everything that he's saying about wanting to be bulletproof, about the league evolving, about the fact that he saw the league changing even in the championship run, but they held on and then felt ready to make the move now. You can't mess it up. And if they do mess it up, or if the person that they get in the role messes up, then you have to cut the cord immediately. Immediate eject button. But I'd rather you get the job. I'd rather you get the right person the first go round. All right, y'all. We got a lot accomplished today. It was great to be back on the microphones. Again, we're in the off season, so it'll be every other week for Gotta Get Up with Brian and I and any special guests. But we'll be every week. Every week we will talk women's basketball on Black Rosie Media, because sometimes I'll be on here with Joeta, and sometimes you'll get all three of us, but we'll alternate shows. So every other week it will be Gotta Get Up, and then in the alternating weeks we'll do Tempestagi Talk, which is our Seattle Storm podcast. Thank y'all so much. Z Diddy, Damien, R. Varnell, Henry Hopton. Thank you so much. Albert Jimenez. You know I love saying your last name. Tammy was in here. Who else did we have? Amir popped in. I think Al Page was in here, right? Earlier. I think I said Tammy Winsome had some great comments. Thank y'all so much. Yeah, Al Page was here. I thought so. Thank y'all so much. Really, it means a lot. So if you like what you're hearing, let other people know. Subscribe to our newsletter. There's so many different ways that you can tap in with us, and everything makes a world of difference. But for Brian Fleurantin, my name is Erica L. Ayala. Happy New York Liberty Day in New York City and in Tulsa. And now it's time to wave, wave, wave. Until next episode, peace out, everybody.